Ford 206 log head. That's what it looks like. Got all these webs in here. The exhaust is integral with the intake, and the intake is integral with the head. The exhaust manifold comes off, but that's it. The only solution for this has been to cut into the manifold, like somewhere in this area, with a flange like this on both ends, or get the Australian head with a non-integral manifold. But you can do this. This is another head sitting on top of this one. Cut away all the old start and go carb warmer stuff. Get rid of the whole log pipe, and you've got all these nice openings where you can braze in DOM tubing, put on whatever kind of flange mechanism you want, and then you can put on like a tri-Y manifold or something, two Y, triple pipe Ys. Make your own bigger log, whatever you want to do. As you can see, there's no reason why this center dump, the exhaust, shouldn't hang out in midair, because all the other four hang it out in midair. So why not the center one? And then you can of course do the port job that they do on these, where you put in the cast device. It makes that opening the same as this opening. Times 2 anyway. But it makes everything more accessible. Makes it so your head bolts don't fill up with junk anymore, because they're all, except for the center one, they're all relatively open around the heads of the bolts. And these ports on this exhaust manifold mount-ups are actually bigger or the same as what you'd find on a V8. So it's not like this head is anemic. It had a bad intake manifold. So there's plenty of meat there, as you can see. I cut all the webs out from between them, cut through in here and got rid of this connection here, got rid of the connection here. Because a cross flow head, the only advantage it really has over a head like this is perhaps better flow around the valves, but what the real advantage is, it separates the exhaust manifold heat from the intake manifold heat. The cross flow is not a benefit. Once the air is locked in the chamber behind the valves, it doesn't care what direction it came from or what direction it's going. It's going out the exhaust valve, coming in the intake valve. So it doesn't matter if it goes across the head, that doesn't make the head better. So that's pretty simple. Once you get to this point, it's all a simple tool, no machining. Just a grinder, sawzall, cut off discs, drill, and like a die grinder, do all this work. And now you can turn this head into as much race as this 206 can handle. And with a 7-bearing engine, it can handle quite a bit. All this work done on this engine was done obviously prior to any machine shop work. It was done outdoors with just common grinders and drills and things like that everybody has. So if you're careful, you can do a lot of this work without the stuff that everybody else has got on all the fancy TV shows and info shows and stuff. This was also done to, I have a small milling machine, and I just rigged up a device that bore out the inlet ports, and I squared them off just big enough to fit some 1.25 .065 ball machine tubing, and then brazed them in to place. And then I ended up cutting them obviously quite short. You'll see in a few other pictures. But I did all the brazing and everything also before any of the machine work, so that any possible distortion of the overall length of the head could be taken out in a quick planing, which I had it planed a minimum of 15 thousandths anyway, just because I was working on a specific compression ratio. But as you can see, I made 2 3-horn manifolds, and then of course I tied it all in with 1 manifold with a 2-barrel. And I think the hardest part of the whole thing was making an intake manifold gasket that wouldn't leak. I ended up stacking up about 15 layers of the pure aluminum ducting adhesive tape in a nice flat manner, and then I cut it out into donuts right in place around between the bolt holes that I had done ahead of time. Once I finished, as you might have noticed already in the last few frames, I'm doing this project for 1964 MGB that I got. It was something that somebody had started working on and just never finished it. And I didn't have a motor, so this is what I'm using. And here you can see where I fabricated a 4x3 firing order based manifold. This was a really good thing to do. It worked out very well as far as the smooth running and the power of the engine. It's pretty amazing. I used every third firing is on 3 different downpipes, and then that all goes into a tri-Y at the bottom and sweeps to the rear. It works really well with a 2-inch exhaust all the way back. The Ford Duraspark ignition has proven to be thoroughly adequate. I didn't have to go crazy with that. The motor's simply bored 30 over. It's got a 1965 200 and a 1965 170 head, which gives it about 1 point of compression because of the difference in size of the chambers on the head. And then of course I bored it 30 over and planed the head about 15,000. So it's right around 11-to-1 compression, which is just about all you want. And then in the past few frames you've seen some interior work. You can't get this color combination for an MGB from any interior manufacturer. So I used my experience working on boats and everything else I could think of. And I decided to just make my own. Tried to keep it looking as though it was something that you would have actually had been able to buy in an MG. So it makes it really look quite good as far as conversations I've had at a couple of car shows this summer. It took a few minutes for people to figure out that the motor wasn't a stock engine, and none of them knew that the interior couldn't have been had from MG. So it pays to do just a little bit of stuff like that, and it wasn't a big project. I completely redid the interior in my own fashion in about a week and a half. And that includes waiting for the materials that I wanted to show up in the mail. So it's a pretty good thing to do. In the engine compartment you can see where I've changed things around a little bit here and there. I had to put a remote filter on. I made my own filter adapter and just bought a Napa remote filter mount. Got some hydraulic hoses and plumbed that into place. I've got one of those really neat little tiny Japanese style alternators. Fit right in there. Got a little tiny belt and that's it. Electric cooling fan. A Volvo M46 transmission with electric overdrive. where I had to completely make all the adapters and stuff for that. It was just absolutely nothing to go down that road with. And I got a nice little heater from Jegs, and put that in. That has been a real good thing because it gave me so much room in the engine compartment to work with, and also left me plenty of room inside to work with. I used Jaguar XJ6 gauges because I have a 6-cylinder engine and they have an electric tach sender, and it was real easy to hook up into the transmission. I bought all the everything new, like fuel tanks and light fixtures and everything I could find that's reasonable. All the switches are marine push switches, so they're waterproof. 100% new brakes. The body, I spent a lot of time trying to make the paint look like it was a 50-year-old car that someone did their best to keep the paint from going bad. I wanted it to have the old rubbed out look where it was darn near flat, but not flat, shined up, and it was kind of difficult to do, but I figured out the trick was to put a lot of paint on it, and definitely to use just a single stage non-metallic paint. I used a bunch of parts from other vehicles, and I've got the door gaskets, for example, are from a 2001 E350. The radiator is something that I had laying around that had never been used. It was an aftermarket radiator from a FJ40 Land Cruiser. Just a long list of stuff like that. The steering wheel, it was a rubber fake leather. In this car, this is a quick little turn and takeoff that I did from a rolling stop kind of, and it literally goes from pretty much 0 to 75 miles an hour in just a couple of gears. You see that the engine pulls hard all the way up, and it's really not redlining at 55. That's just the old XJ6 tag. It's worth it. If you're trying to make an engine, you like playing with engines, I'd go for the little straight 6.